right, so welcome again to Cosmic Connection with Rachel Archelaus and Harry Kroner, myself, and we are going to talk today about telepathic communication and any types of communication with other beings in other dimensional connection, and it varies quite tremendously as we talk about, again, the full cosmic range of beings and luckily enough, both Rachel and I are channeling some beings and have communicated with many different types of beings. So we're going to chat about it. We're going to talk about our experiences, okay? So tell me, Rachel, when do you feel like you started really communicating consciously, deliberately putting the intention in communicating with other beings on other dimensions?
Well, this one happened pretty early for me since I knew my invisible older brother, Matt, wasn't really an invisible older brother. I mean, he was like a real
aware
person.
of it.
Yeah, like he was real. So, I mean, I did that when I was really young. I think my earliest, I don't know, I'd say probably forever. So I've always been aware of that.
Why don't you tell who it was, who Matt was for you?
So Matt was my best friend. I knew he was an older male energy. So I called him my older brother, Matt. And I brought him around. I introduced him to my family. We played together every day, talked on the swing set. I thought he was I called him my brother. So I knew he was family. I didn't know what to categorize him as a young kid. But in my teens, I called him my spirit guide, because we did stay very close up until I was about 19. And then I realized he's not a very good spirit guide. Once I got into my later teens, I was like, this isn't working. So I fired him as my spirit guide. And then a couple of years later, I found out that he was my hybrid brother. So not really a spirit guide. Spirit guides are, in the usual sense, very trained, very there for a specific purpose, even if they're just assigned to you throughout your life. But so anyway, it's okay that he wasn't the perfect guide because he was actually my brother. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, my first encounter was with spirit guides, and I went into it more during my already adult life as I was working with them, and realizing through psychic clients that they could channel at that point. They could also just channel their guides if I put them under hypnosis, and they could channel, and I could give them and ask their questions to their spirit guides. So this kind of thing. So because most people have a hard time having a direct connection like we do have now. So that was really what I did for a long time. And interesting enough, I had a friend of mine who was, I did it for him, and in exchange, he channeled my spirit guides for me. Because at that point, I didn't think I could do it. I really thought like, oh wow, you have to be born with a skill, or not realizing that all I can do it. And what they channel again and again is that, like, you can just talk to us directly if you'd like. And I'm like, oh really? I can? That's it seemed kind of an unreachable thing for me at that point. I feel like, oh, it feels like, and it's hard to describe the process of. Now I know it. It's just thinning the veil between you and the guides, the dimensional veil. It's making it smaller and smaller so you can create a channel of communication. And I teach that, and I think you teach it as well. How to communicate and channel and through intuition and through your just telepathic ability, how to really communicate more clearly with your higher self and your spirit guides. And spirit guides are very readily available. And they are here. And as you said, they have very specific roles. Usually, they have spent either several or just at least one lifetime as a human, so they know what it is to be human. And usually that lifetime was with us as family, friends, loved ones in some form or another. So usually that's where their role was. So they are close to us in many different ways and know us, our soul, very, very well. And they're there as a support role. And the best way I can describe it, and lately in the past 4 or 5 years, I've been channeling through automatic writing. And I asked them, so if I asked to explain someone what is their role of spirit guides exactly, the explanation I received is like that we are like in a bicycle race. We are the bike riders. We are the one who is actually doing it. And they are that kind of support van that goes in with a spare tire and with an extra bottle of water and give us a lot of encouragement, direction to like, okay, it's just another hill, just go up the hill, you can do it. And then it's a downhill, and really doing that loving and caring support. But we still need to do the path. We still need to do the riding of the race of which is life.
Yeah. One example I give about what spirit guides do is, have you ever been like unconsolably upset, like just crying and crying, or in, an emotional pain, and then all of a sudden you feel better? That's usually your guide giving you that comfort. They're good at pushing emotion and helping you resolve that emotion. And so that's normally what I see with them.
Absolutely. So I think they are very readily available for all of us, and it's important to learn how the skill to doing it, and that opens the path and opens the channel to communicate with more and more beings, and a wider variety. And I always repeat that because I think it humbles me and humbles the whole communication. People think, oh, you can't, it's not reachable, and when I first realized through, again, some talented and very visually open clients, which are in their state of very open, they can sense and see that, oh, there's a lot of beings around us, light beings around us that are actually helping me with the healing. And I'm like, really, they are? At first I didn't realize it. And then like, okay, no wonder those healing sessions are so powerful, because it's definitely not just me. I knew that. It's interesting to see that. And through that and the openness that I suddenly sensed it, like really close my, because I'm a little halfway there too when I'm guiding someone, and realize like I can feel the sense of warmth. I can feel, and through some energy work that I was doing, I increase my sensitivity to that and realize, okay, I can now understand what it feels when I sense when they suddenly clients are like, oh, suddenly 3 or 4 beings joined us here right now. And like, okay, I can sense that. I made a connection and have that reference point, how it feels when there's a presence nearby. So it really is wonderful, and again, more talented clients have opened me to understanding. Oh, there's angels, there's the spirit guides here. And realize, first of all, a lot of it is culturally based, and they show ourselves. They show themselves to us in what would be representative to us, depending on our background. But a lot of times it isn't. And if you think about, people think, oh, angels are very Christian or very religious approach to light beings that are assisting us. And maybe a lot of the ATs in the past were perceived as angels. That's true, but by now, and I think you can support me on that, you really feel they have their own entities. And just because religions of the past have discovered them, doesn't mean they haven't existed way even before that. They're infinite beings and timeless beings that have existence since creation. And they are very close to source. So understanding that they've been here before religions, not being created by religions, but just acknowledged and understood that of their existence. And yes, it might be that some religions have confused them or mixed them all up, bunched them all together. But the true mystics of every religion have worked and able to discern them in a very clear way. So when we talk about angels, archangels, lately I've been just talking this morning, I was just talking to some seraphim, and I like, and again, out of ignorance, sometimes I'm like, okay, what level of seraphim? I can't remember what they're saying. Oh no, it's the highest level of angel kind of kingdoms, the 9th level as far as I consider it. And I was asking for their help in helping other certain client, and they told me, just call upon us and we'll come and help and do the work that we need to do. So when you can take it over from here, and how it feels when you communicate with different beings and different.
Yeah. So just to expand on your spirit guide intro, which I think is perfect because most people want to start there normally. They want to start with their guide. And what I've found is I have really enjoyed talking and meeting with hundreds of people's spirit guides over the years. It's one of my favorite things to do. Guides are so awesome and so varied. I have seen every single kind of guide imaginable, and there are probably infinite more that I have not encountered. And they'll show themselves to me in a way that gives me a piece of what they're helping the client with, of who they are, of just they show themselves to me in a way that's really informative. And for example, like for some people's guides, they will be up and floating in the corner and won't talk to me. I've had that a couple times where they're not, their job is not to talk to me. Their job is to help the client. And a lot of guides take that really seriously and just don't want to talk to anyone else, which is cool. But I've also encountered a lot of guides that show themselves as really wacky things, like a mountain or a pile of jello or little woodland elves. I mean, I've seen it all, and it always resonates with the client. It's so funny about whatever the guide shows themselves as, is what the client needs or is being supported as. You know, I've seen voluptuous women. I've seen just anything you could possibly imagine. And how I help people feel their guides is I'll ask someone to just kind of sit still and take a breath in and notice how their body feels, and then call in their guide, say, okay, guide, come and please stand with me. And then just notice the shift. So maybe you'll feel a touch on your shoulder, or maybe you'll start to feel heavier, or maybe you'll feel someone caressing the back of your neck. That's a good way to link up, because then the next time you call on your guide, make sure it feels the same way. And then you'll feel safe in knowing that your guide is actually with you. They're there, they're listening. Because if you can't see the guide, or you can't really depend on your telepathic communication yet, that's a good way to get the trust going and know that they're really with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once you start making the connection, you start opening and know that you are, first of all, make sure that you are calling only those which are in your highest good. And first of all, before you start any communication, you always make sure you're surrounded by light. At this point, I can say for myself, I am always surrounded by light. I'm always protected by all the hundreds of helpers that I have. So I'm feeling pretty safe and have been for many years now. But it's important to do that. Important to do that from any psychic attacks or entities that you don't want to, that you are not. Again, they'll take advantage of those who are just beginning. So make sure that you are safe in doing it just as precautionary. Just surround yourself with light and allow those who are on your highest good to come forward. And now, when you do that, when I start doing that, I start realizing that first of all, a lot of those guides. First of all, you start to notice that there's to discern that there's one who is more. For me, again, she presents herself in a more nurturing, the more loving, more gentle female. So it feels like a more gentle female voice, and you can see it also in the choice of words. It's so you start noticing their personality is reflects in the way you communicate and the word that they pull out of your head, the word that they pick to use varies, like the style of communication. Yeah, so I know one of my main guys always speaks like kind of an older English, which is kind of interesting. And the picking of words, which I like. Wow, I haven't heard this word in 10 years, and I know they pick specific words which are like, wow, I would not come up with in my regular speech with those kind of words. And that's also a confirmation that you are doing well. So when have you noticed that you start communicating with other cosmic beings?
Well, consciously, that probably came in my mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the exception of angels, I've always kind of been around angels. It's so funny. The first time I ever consciously brought an angel into my room to talk with, I just called on an angel group to come down and help me. This was after working with a spiritual mentor for a little while, who opened me up to the idea of even talking to them.
Yeah.
And this angel came in my room, and he was huge. And I asked him what his name was, and he said Maximus. And at first I didn't get it, but he was appearing very large, and his name was Maximus. So he was kind of playing around with me. But those first few times that I started talking to angels and other beings, it felt very difficult. It felt like a lot of pressure in my head. It was hard to concentrate. It almost hurt a little bit. Like it was like my head was filling up too fast. And a lot of that is because it happened a long time ago before the energies got so high on Earth.
Yes.
But also I learned that a good lesson, if it's uncomfortable, don't do it. If something is coming to you or you're trying to make a connection that just doesn't feel right, then just stop. Don't do it.
So you can also just ask him to tone it down.
Yes, you can ask them to calibrate their energy better to suit you and to make it easier on you.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think nowadays there's not so many issues with that. It's just that, if you do start talking to something that you don't enjoy, then you don't need to talk to it because, there's really no hierarchy. You are just as high on the totem pole as any other being. So don't ever let that kind of make you feel like you need information from something else.
That's right. That's right. We forget, we put ourselves down below here on the third dimension. We think that's all we are, but you have to remember that your own higher selves is a representation of you in almost every dimension that exists. And you are pretty much high up there. So just because you are communicating with your smaller representation on the third dimension or fifth dimension or sixth dimension, whatever you communicate with, doesn't mean that you are not a being of equal stature. And a lot of it is sometimes my experience was understanding that I'm actually some of my guides. For example, one of my main guides that actually right now is no longer with me was my future self. And it took me a little while to understand it because he was my closest guide. He was my really like my go-to person for years. And then I realized, wow, this is actually like I'm you. I am you. I am you from the future, and I'm here to guide you through this process of just starting out. And once I completed that process, and I noticed I reached a certain level. He was no longer there, and other guides have come forward and have helped me in this process. And actually, in the past year and a half, I've already had like 3 switches of upgrading this, and it's just a role that they take and they say to it like I'm just taking a role here for you, and we're working together. And for most of them, they don't really like to talk about where they're from, and we humans have the tendency like, well, what's your name? Where are you from? What are you doing? And it's really important to know that they don't necessarily see that. They just really take a role as they are here for you. And just like we are, like myself, I lived in 3 countries around the world. So where am I from? Well, I'm from many different places, and it's the same for them. And realize that higher parts within ourselves, we live in different civilizations across the universe. So where are we really from? It's varied. It's very varied. There's a really wide array of locations which we are from. So don't focus on that so much.
I want to also mention the name thing.
Yeah.
Many people really want to know the name, but honestly, most of them don't have names that we could even say.
Pronounce, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what they would need to do is just kind of come up with something that you could call them, which is normally what happens. Like
Right.
angels, for instance, they often have like these harmonic chime names, which is very beautiful if you've ever heard them. I've only heard it a few times, the like harmonic chiming angelic language or sound, but we can't pronounce that. So we basically just need to come up with something to say. So like if you're seeing a psychic and you really want to know the name of your guide, try to let that go. And if you're asking your guides yourself, try to let that go as well, because that's not the only thing that's going to help you bond with that being, right? You can even say, can I call you this? And you'll probably feel a resonance and them saying yes. So you can even make that a fun thing of like, figuring out what you can call that being. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because most of them are just vibration, and it's really hard to like what number is that vibration? There's no number, there's no name. It's not really something that you need to focus on. But what I like to do is like it's just something that represents them to me, or at least a certain vibration. But I let go of that too. I'm not focusing on that at all, and just allow myself to enjoy the process. But a lot of times when I start communicating with different types of beings, they present themselves as like we are. For you would be like the Zetas. We are for me, it's the Arcturians. We are whatever it is that they come forward, come forth as. As I just mentioned this morning, I just connected with a seraphim. So it really is about they'll say like what generally who we are, what we are, and then they'll just communicate. And usually it is a collective anyway. Even the spirit guides, it is a collective anyway. So allow yourself to let go of like individuation of the guidance and the beings that you are connecting with, and allow yourself to more as who they represent, who they are as a collective.
Yeah, because when you get to a certain dimension, we lose individuation anyway. So
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
it's
Exactly.
not a bad sign. It's not like anyone's ignoring you if you get a collective to show up for you. It's just a different way of being on a different dimension.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I myself, I just have groups. Like when the Pleiadians come, it's a group of Pleiadians. I don't know them individually. When my angels come, it's a group. I've been with them, or I've been consulting with them for a long time, so I can pick out the individuals in the group. But
when they speak, yes.
yeah, but they speak as one. Yeah.
Right. So tell us a little more about what groups do you work? So you worked with the angels many years now. You work with the Pleiadians, as you mentioned. What other groups do you work with?
I work with the Zetas, and pretty much anything else that crosses my path. When I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, the ant ETs reached out to me because they lived here for a long time, and were very mingled into the Native American culture here. Those people that are represented on cave drawings and on pots and all sorts of things, and they come from like the Orion belt pretty much, but I believe from other places too. And I had some dealings with them. But it's funny, when I first moved here, they were like jamming my signal. They kept trying to talk to me so much that I was in a brain fog for like the first 2 months that I lived here, because I didn't even know what was happening. I was basically just in a fog. My boyfriend thought I was depressed and was really worried about me. But once I figured it out and got the energy running smoothly, it was fine. But I've also they're everywhere. If you open your eyes and you can see, or if you attune yourself to seeing, which is not hard these days, you'll see different kinds of ETs everywhere. I mean, I used to talk to like little triangle beings, the blue triangle beings. I remember at my friend's house, she had an apartment in Ansonia, Connecticut. There was just some weird ET like walking down the hallway, and we invited him in and kind of talked to him for a little while. So there's a lot of.
It sounds so casual. It's very funny.
Yeah, it is. For me, this is it's what I do. So, and when I was a little kid, I used to talk to all the mantis in the back of my yard, and they were real bug praying mantis, but I'm sure that they were also being projected and talking through the little bug. So
yeah, they share the consciousness with them because they are they're relative seedings of those other beings that have been in existence way longer than they have been on Earth. So it has been seeded on the Earth as distant cousins.
What's cool about that too is that is the official bug of Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah, so they're in high esteem there, and it's illegal to harm them. So I think that's really
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That actually is a good segue into these other kinds of beings as well, because I know we were both talking about, dolphins and other kinds of either mythical or real animal beings.
Yeah, and realizing that connecting with everything as consciousness, and if you do this work long enough, you realize that everything has consciousness. A blade of grass has consciousness. So other beings that definitely have consciousness, and it's been not only from what I read, a lot of clients of mine has mentioned suddenly they start a wave of like a lot of dolphin mentioning, like dolphins and whales, and realize, oh, they are the keepers of knowledge on this earth, and all kind of stuff like that. I thought like, well, maybe just like once or twice, but then when again I started seeing that it's a continuous thing, that they are really very highly evolved beings, as we know that they are, highly intelligent, and they are the keepers of knowledge of. And they were assigned to that, and so we start connecting, and it started like, okay, let me connect with the dolphin, and it's like, oh wow, they're impressive in their understanding and their consciousness. So it's like when you start
And so
realizing that,
filled with joy.
yeah, oh yes, the
Yeah.
playfulness of a dolphin it's almost I think they're one of the highest levels of joy and playfulness on this earth. And it's really really amazing because they are just really born to be, you know, free kind of thing. It's the best expression of that on earth. And when you start, and at that point I like start doing that and realize, okay, everything has kind of a galactic connection. And I started having more and more clients that depict their own lives, because I've done past lives for so many years, past lives in other civilizations across the universe. And they're like, okay, I've been this blue being that was like very artistic, and I brought this talents with me to this life. And I've been this thing and that thing, and again I'm repeating here dozens of cases. And that's not like again, for me it's more of a research project, you can say, and a confirmation. And I've worked in different places in the country, in Massachusetts and here in Arizona, and also across the world on Skype. And I just do those past life regressions, and the things that come through are just beautiful and amazing. The accounts of people and how they describe it. And I asked them specifically to describe how it is to live on those civilizations. What is it you do? How does it feel? And when they come back and they say like, wow, it felt so different to be such a different being, with different perception of, as we said, emotions. And we are one of the most highly emotional beings. And that's part of what we come to do on this earth to do, is to learn about emotions and to learn about how to deal and wisen through emotions. So this is, so people think, oh, I'm too emotional. Like, that's okay. It's part of your mission.
Yeah.
But it's really beautiful to see. And as they do that, I certainly talk through them when they are, those can be, or allow them to channel. And this is how it really started with this, is like people describe past lives, and suddenly they describe being on a pyramid and knowing, oh, I'm going to meet tonight, I'm going to meet our galactic friends. And like, okay, let's go forward in time to that time with which you met those galactic friends. And then like you start describing, and it's like, oh, may I speak to them directly? And then they come through for that person. So that's how I personally encountered it was good for me to do this for a while, to communicate with those beings through that the vessel of other people as a channel, because it gave me that comfort knowing that, like, okay, I know they do well, I know their message. What are they here to do with humanity? What did they did that time in our human past history with humanity, and about failed attempts to bring more consciousness and in our history, raise the consciousness of our humanity, and failed many times, like in Egyptian time, in other civilizations that have existed, the Mayan time. They did that, and then it kind of went downhill when they started doing all kind of human sacrifices and started like losing their way. It didn't start that way. Usually it started pretty high pinnacle for those civilizations when they had high connection, and they're giving them those advanced math and all that kind of stuff. And then it starts to kind of decline. So
Well, we could probably address that as like the decline of the vibration on Earth, right? Like when you start out at that high vibration and you're able to communicate with those beings and receive the information, that's one thing. But then if you devolve into fear and worry about, where things are coming from, and then you start seeing them as gods who control everything, like that's kind of where
right.
all of that humanness comes in with the sacrifice. It's more like loss of control, that feeling of we need to manipulate here. We don't know what to do to make the gods happy.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I mean, it's a really fascinating thing to think about.
Yes, exactly. And when you talk, for example, about one of my favorite accounts is a colleague of mine, and she was able at some point to communicate and bring forward the Arcturians, which was the first time that I've actually heard of them. I didn't even know that. I didn't remember the name of the star. They're like, oh, Arcturians. It sounds like a star. I think I never heard of it before. Again, I was pretty ignorant about it at the time that there was a civilization from there, and realized that they're so highly advanced and they're all just almost pure love in their existence. So it really is phenomenal. And when she was channeling them, she was saying like, oh my God, my consciousness, my is expanding in all directions from like infinitely. Just to be able to to be able to communicate with them. And then when she was doing that, I was actually seeing her body kind of oscillate and vibrate as she was doing it, and channeling those higher dimensions. And they were saying we need to increase the level of the vibration of this being that we are channeling through in order to communicate with you easily. Otherwise, it's very hard because they're in a very high dimension. And it was amazing to see. And from that point on, we're like, she was like, I want to do it again. Because she said like that the feeling of love that she received from them was something that is incomprehensible in our normal existence as humans. The amount of love that she felt, she was just wanted again, again. And I enjoyed it because we were just tapping. At that point, it was like before 2012, and we were like really trying to comprehend and get a little more understanding of what is happening and taking place, and so that was really good for me to get the confirmations of what is the shift as it is happening, the evolution of us as humans. And it was really interesting to see the change in, again, the style of speech, the choice of words, the general attitude that they come with, which is so different than even humans, or you can say like, a higher ego, if you want to take that more. People think it's just something that people create within their mind, and plus the information. It's hard for me now to kind of put it all together, but the level of information that we have received, that person that I was on my couch was like, wow, could not even imagine the things that have come through, the information that have come through of understanding the universe and understanding deeper aspects of and history of humanity and cosmic occurrences and stuff that person just simply did not have in any part of their consciousness, really. It's definitely coming from somewhere else, and we have to acknowledge that. So at that point, it became easier for me to understand, like, I can just do it. I can just start communicating with them. And I started doing that again. For me, it was easier through automatic writing, because it's just also easier to look back and read and do more of the analyzing and conscious connection with it. And I'm conscious when I do it, because I actually ask questions as I do it. Like, so what is this for? What are we doing here? And why are you doing this and that? So I'm half conscious anyway. And I think these days, that need to be completely unconscious is not necessary anymore. And most communications now, even channelers, there's barely any trance channelers, because it's just our vibration on Earth right now is so much higher than even it was 25 years ago, that the need for complete conscious disconnection is not necessary, and we are conscious. So even when I do the quantum healings, people say like, oh, but I was aware of what's happening. Yes, that's okay. It's not the way it was even 10, 15 years ago.
Even 1 year ago. I mean, it's just
exactly
constantly raising right now. And I totally agree. I've always been interested in watching the evolution of channeling. I have a lot of friends who are channelers, and even hearing them talk about channeling beings in different dimensions, it feels different. Right. So my friend would have to go into a very deep meditation and raise his vibration a lot and kind of lose control of his arms, and move them around while he was channeling, say, a 7th or 8th dimensional being or group. But then when he would channel like a 4th dimensional or 5th dimensional fairy, he would be much more present, and it would feel very, very different. And he wouldn't have to really lose so much of himself in the process. So
Hmm.
it's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's just gonna tap onto that. It was interesting for me when I was again seeing clients, and I remember one in particular. She was very beautiful, beautiful cosmic being, and she was like describing life on other dimensions for sure. Because it was like some of them were pure, she was pure energy, and some of them she was like in this planet that had like um, everything was kind of blue, and it worked like kind of fairy style kind of beings, and that she was communicating with them, and they were communicating with her, and it's like fascinating stuff. And she was like, okay, well, yeah, they're the cousins of the fairies that we have here. And I'm like, okay, that sounds a little different. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm open. We'll see how it connects and how it's related, and realizing that again, more and more clients start describing mythical beings and connection to the fairy world and in this level of world and in this kind of dimension, and realize these are all just different dimensions and astral dimensions in the earth, on the earth, that people can tap onto. And a lot of those mythological creatures are actually being on other dimensions that we meet through our dreams, through our things. And I remember the first time, wow, that was like almost 20 years ago, first time that I did a shamanic journeying. I did like went to the realm of the spirit animals, and I did actually beautiful experience. But then something that picked me up was this enormous something that looks like from like a never-ending story, but not exactly like the little dog face, but a being with like with wings, like white wings that were like the size of an airplane, something that was tremendous. And it had the face of a bird and everything, but you can see that, oh, it's like, wow, that's from a different place. And that felt really different. But
Oh, we lost you for a sec. You still there? Oh, there we go.
there you go. So where did we stop?
So you were talking about how it felt like it was from a different place.
Yes, but it felt so real as well, and that was really what I'm trying to emphasize here. It's just felt real, and it's like wow. And sometimes we have those kind of dreams, and we feel like we see other beings, and so at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be open to that, and allow. And it kind of gave confirmation to all those and folk tales and fairy tales, and that we all seem to stick to. And it's kind of interesting how humanity, some brush away a lot of stuff that is not untrue very quickly, but those things kind of stick away. And the whole dragon thing. Uh, and it was interesting, and in one of my starseed classes we start doing it and talking, and suddenly people start saying like, wow, I feel like there's this dragon being coming along and as a guide for me, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll just be open to that. And so like, and then I went to and another person in the same room. That was the cool thing. I liked that my starseed group because they give a lot of confirmation, because you think like, okay, it's just me making this up, and you realize, okay, 3 or 4 people experienced that in the same room. That means something really happened. Again, on a different dimension, a different level, but it did happen. And it started, and one night, a lot of people suddenly described a lot of different colors of dragons, and kind of more like water dragons of the Asians, or more European kind of style dragons. But it was like interesting how suddenly 3 or 4 people described dragons. And I went home, and the next day I was like, okay, I got to try to communicate with the dragon beings and see if that real is, because it felt really, again, a little kind of out there.
That was pushing your comfort zone out.
Pushing my comfort zone. I was like, well, I'm curious just to see that. And I called upon the dragon beings, and I communicate with them, and it felt amazing, like such large, vast consciousness. And this is not the same as dinosaurs. This is different. They are connected in some way, I believe, but they're not the same. And they're vast beings, and they're vast beings that have been since the creation of Earth and before that, because they have been on other. They are beings, cosmic beings from other civilizations that have helped create the Earth, and have helped. A lot of people fear the dragons, and they have taken interesting roles. They have their own kind of agenda and place, but just communicating with that vastness of consciousness and the level of assuredness that they have in their beings, in who they are and what they do and their role, was really interesting. It's hard to describe. Tell me a little more. Do you have any experience with mythical beings or other?
Just just the regular like fairy.
The regular fairy.
Yeah, the regular little fairy. Um, Again, very playful, very confident, very helpful, very big. Fairies are very big beings. They can appear small, but in their natural state, they're
Yes.
very big. Um, and like Harry's saying, they all feel different. They feel a certain way. They have their own signature energy. And so, if you're wanting to connect with one of these beings, you'll know it when you do because you'll feel it. You'll feel the joy of the dolphins. You'll feel the playfulness, and the fairies are very solid too. They're not like little fluttery feeling things.
Mm-hmm.
With the dragons, Harry is saying they're feeling vast and big. So you might feel a little bit small next to their presence or their energy.
Yes, I felt tiny. I felt really tiny, and it was impressive. And the way they speak, and you realize that when you channel them, and the way they speak, the way they their attitude is reflected in it, and it's just like, whoa, that's different than even sometimes what you expect. So, do you feel like there's some example of the fairy beings? Are they reflected in the fairy of the fairy tales? And also, do they reflect in what elf kind is? Do you feel that, or is it not exactly it?
I mean, I think there's like the same problem with fairy tales as there is right now with stereotypes, right?
Hmm.
Like they're
Right.
all stereotyped. And so there's some semblance of truth, but normally they don't get enough credit. Like these beings are very smart, very intelligent. Uh,
Yeah.
Fairies are extremely bright. And, you know, it's almost like that switch. Like I know people who can become very serious in an instant, but are also like the most fun loving, playful people I know, right? Fairies are like that, where they can get very serious and very stoic in trying to tell you something that you really want to understand. Uh,
Hmm.
I haven't had a lot of communication with elves or dwarves or any of those other beings that I know of, anyway. Um, but yeah, I'm getting off track now.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Um,
Oh
I,
yeah, are they represented clearly? So yeah, just not really. I found, but yes, to an extent.
yeah, and it's really kind of interesting to be in this point in time. And again, for me, it was I'm talking about here as if it's one big thing, and it's for me it was an expanse of years of learning and opening for more and more. So if some of this sounds to people a little out there, that's okay. It's a little out of your comfort
It
zone.
is a little out there.
Put yourself into what you felt is comfortable and what we have discussed so far, and know that okay, I can progress from that point on and again, for us it was a process of years of getting comfortable with each and every single one of these concepts, and then growing next to next. Although now I know that the acceleration in earth's consciousness and acceptance of this is speeding up exponentially, and that's okay to suddenly feel like no. And I see that in some people, so I see them talk and feel like as if they've been doing it like me, like no, and like you, like no, 20 years being in this kind of metaphysical world, and no, they've been doing it for 3 years, but they're just like, suddenly became sponges of all this information and absorbed and understood and shifted their belief system and their understanding of the world as we know it, and expanding their understanding and consciousness to include all this, um, and realize again we have that telepathic confirmation. This is not self-construct, because I can tell you that again sometimes some communication with some of those other beings feels very different than what you would answer yourself or what you expect yourself to answer, or again create those kind of stereotypes or representations that we have of them. And they're like, so like, no, we're not exactly like that. This is what we are. And they're like, oh wow, okay, I didn't expect that. So um, a lot of times you feel like you're just making it up, but trust it, let it flow.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I love addressing this part of it because I teach a lot of people to unlock their psychic senses. And this is a big concern, right? It's like the reason why people don't trust themselves and the information they get is because they have that feeling like they're making it up. Well, in part, you are, because the truth of you is not an individuated being. You are everything. So you are those other groups and those other collectives and those other dimensions, and you're all of it. And so you're talking to yourself. You are. Those beings have individuated from you on this perspective because you're living in this dimension right now. And so that's why you're feeling that. It's because in a way you are making it up because you're not really that person that you think you are. And the other thing is, it doesn't matter if it's real. It doesn't matter. If you're experiencing it and it feels good to you, then that's all that matters, right? A lot of people ask me like, well, how do I know all these things are real? I don't. There's no way I could possibly know. My human mind is very limited, and I'm never going to have like proof or anything else that any of this stuff has happened to me in my life. And so it doesn't matter. That's whatever right. You're experiencing is real for you, and that's all that matters.
Absolutely. And it's just also a matter of understanding that our imagination and our dreams and all that, they are true as well. Well, not all dreams, but some dreams are just, mental purge. But a lot of that is working on astral planes that we just remember as dream because it's just, we work and we operate in different dimensions. And it's just allow yourself to be open to every possibility. And what is real is what is making your reality. And reality is that, there's a glass half full and half empty. It is both there. They're both real. And from that openness, like that, let yourself just be open that it might be real and let yourself experience it. And at some point it becomes real because you just allow yourself to believe and understand that this is part of my expansion of understanding of what is. If you would have come to humanity 200 years ago and tell them there's going to be there is this invisible thing that is around us, that is electromagnetic fields, and it's just around. We can't feel, we can't see it, we can't sense it, but it's all around us, and some of it can even contain information. And you feel like, and then you show them the radio, and it's like, this is transmitting information through the air, through electromagnetic waves, and it has actually coding in it. They'll sing like it's science fiction. But this was 100 years ago. And now you think about Wi-Fi, and as we talk right now, it's all information transmitted through the air, through electromagnetic resonance. It's just mind-boggling. And so think of, we are here advancing ahead of technology and what is acknowledged by humanity as real. Because if you tell like, okay, television transmission is real. Yes, I can see it on the screen. I know it's real. If you did not have a TV and someone told you what the concept of TV is, you would say like, it doesn't make any sense. But just because we cannot measure it yet does not mean it doesn't exist either. And if you think about it, we're all energy, we're all frequency, and we can tap into the right frequency to connect and with other parts of who we are, because we are all one eventually. So allow yourself to know that this is an expansion of reality as it is. And it is, again, just because we cannot prove it, allow the proof of the many to allow us to know that this is not just a few crazy people. Hopefully we not seem like crazy people.
I'm not too worried about that. If they're still listening, then they're listening for a reason.
And understanding that this is just an expansion of our consciousness. And just because technology is a little behind on that doesn't mean it is not validated. And again, I like to have confirmations. And for me, as a fairly logical person, I like to have some proof, at least 3 or 4 confirmations from 3 different sources. I like that. And when I see it again through my clients, for myself, I start having confirmations, and through other people, like, okay, it starts to make sense. I allow myself to expand my comfort zone around this topic and allow it to exist now. And again, just because it's out there and we don't feel it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. In the same way as we talk about all this communication, when you start doing that, and I think it's important for people to know that when you start doing that on a more regular basis, start to trust what's coming through, you'll see that, again, the information that's coming through the different types of talk, the different kind of again, it feels different. The beings that you are connecting with, and as I said, when you start working with even a group of beings that is very specific group of beings, you start noticing the different individuals within the group that are talking through, because they feel a little different, they sound a little different, they have a slightly different frequency. Like all of us, we have a slightly different frequency. Um, so you're tapping into that. So realizing, I think, shifting from that concept that we are just like humans that might have some abilities, and shifting into understanding that we are actually transmitting and receiving. Um, we are a transceiver. I'm using the wrong word. We are kind of a radio ourselves. We are a being. We don't need other devices for it. We are the device because we have our own frequency, and we can tap into these things. And this is proven time and time again as far as telepathy and ability, and that and scientifically have been proven already that telepathy does exist, and someone across the world can tap in and think of a certain picture. It has been done. This is just frequency that we can tap in, and we can train ourselves to hone it down and become more and more refined in our skill, just like any other skill. If you pick up a basketball today, you're going to throw it towards the hoop, you're going to maybe hit, maybe not. If you start doing it every day, you're going to start shooting baskets like nothing. So it really,
and also surround yourself with people who are interested in this and doing this too. That's one of the highest or the easiest ways to learn these skills and to have them present in you, because you don't actually have to learn anything. Everyone already knows how to do this. You just trained yourself not to do it. So now you have to train yourself to allow it to happen.
and just notice what it feels to tune in to specific things. Again, just like a radio, you're kind of fine tuning what am I tuning into? What channel am I tuning into? All radio transmission happens all at the same time. We're just learning how to tune into specific things, specific beings, specific frequencies, especially the ones that we are really good at receiving, which for us is our galactic families, our spirit guides, our angels that are working with us and are near us physically and telepathically. So it really is just take off all this myth around it. It really is just really fairly simple. And especially now, I think the veil is so thin. It really is just, for me, it's just a blink away. For you is as well. And again, for me, I wasn't, you can say I enabled myself to hone in the skill without having a particular niche for it to start with, just in my 30s, really. So it's all doable. It's all possible. It's all near us. It's all available. And that's what you keep it. And just practice and learn. If you have something to learn from us. And go to our website, to Rachel's website. It's sephyrus.com, SEPHYRUS.
Yep.
Sephyrus.com. Or go to my website, harrykroner.com, and just check out if there's any you can do it personal training. You can do it like through any workshops that we're doing, tele workshops or anything like that, or physical ones, and just start doing it. Start learning. It's really is not that difficult. It really is a matter of trust and allowing yourself to do it enough to start doing it, start really feeling like it's flowing.
Yes.
Very
awesome.
Good.
Well, that was so much fun, Harry. Thanks for such a great topic.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you very much for doing this with me. It's awesome. I love it.
So everybody out there, leave us your questions, your comments. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know what you want to know about, and keep in touch, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you.